Welcome to the ROTH Show.
Now, if I look a little bit blurry, it's not because I just got back from Amsterdam. It is, but it isn't. It's because Tom just fixed the focus, and maybe Tom's a little blurry. It's early in the morning, not for me. I haven't been to sleep since the late 80s, which is a very Dutch thing to say. Okay, that kind of sense of humor is Jan Van Halen, Mr. Van Halen. The brothers and I never got along. The sparks from that collision, that kind of thing, that's running with the devil. No, you man, you should have. How come did? I ain't talking about love. Look at her, she's fucking crying again. Jamie's always cried. You're late. I'm not late. I'm early. That's Van Halen. Mr. Van Halen, and my sense of humor, in fact, kind of what you're seeing and hearing right now is Jan. And I spent many evenings sitting up with him late night on the tour buses talking. And he shared with me a lot. He played during the war in Holland and all over the world, okay? And then came to the United States, and his boys grew up in Pasadena, me down the street from them, all right? But he hasn't decided. It's dry. It's a little bit, okay, all right, like this kind of a thing. It's the perceived expected, okay? For example, if somebody does something really amazing, all right, in some cultures, you'll go like this. You'll go, that's great, like this. But in European style, it's a little distant, and it's my sense of humor as well. Because of this, you'll go like this. Somebody does an amazing, perfect 10 on the high bar, and you go, what you're saying is, I don't believe it. I can't believe that's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Whereas if you don't speak that kind of humor, you'll think you're being just a little weenie about it and go, nah, that's not good enough. In fact, you're going, you're saying, I can't believe it. That's the most amazing thing. That's what I grew up with, all right? I didn't grow up with, oh, honey, that's amazing. The best you could look for is, that's my boy. They showed up with a van. It's kind of a van. It's a windowed van. The windows don't open. Seats about 9 people or something. They says this is a 2-hour drive to Maastricht. Maastricht has a gigantic speedway where they have a concert every year called Pink Pop. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here, but I think Pink Pop is a reference to bubblegum, okay? It's pink. Perhaps it pops. Perhaps something like Walkman. Who would think of that? What paleface would ever think of Walkman? But when you hear it, it makes perfect sense. Who would put salt in ice cream, especially carrot? Makes perfect sense. Windowless van, can't open the windows. We're going to drive for 2 hours. First off, don't believe anything they say to you if they tell it to you on the road. It's written that way, somewhere important, somewhere religious, okay? In the great book of lies, that's what we call the tour guide, if somebody even took the time to print one out, what you get on every tour. You get the itinerary, you get the airplane flights, you get the serial numbers, what time you start, what time you start. It's all lies. Those godless bastards. And that's a chant around here. Tom, is that not a chant around here?
That's
no matter what. And we say it no matter who calls, right?
Exactly.
We get ahead of it.
Yeah.
Like Grandma Roth used to say, Grandma Roth looked like Auntie M. Really, I'll show you a picture of her. Scrawny little gal, looked just like a scrawny little twisted wire beef jerky version of Auntie M from Wizard of Oz. Okay, and she'd say, you got to get ahead of this. And she'd always be wiping her hands on the apron in case you didn't. She'd be warming up, going, oh, get out the way. Really? Okay. So we just get ahead of it. And no matter who calls, and say to the name. First, you ask the name. And it's even better of an answer if it's somebody important, if it's somebody family, if it's somebody that is totally trustworthy, because you look up like in Sands of Iwo Jima, like Guadalcanal, like some Civil War thing. It's a First World War. It could be anything at all that involves drama and the buildings are falling and it's Private Ryan or something. And you look up and go, those godless bastards, they'll pay. And then you take the call. So if it's a close friend or a loved one, the first thing you do if they go, it's Jerry, you turn to everybody else in the room and go, that godless bastard, she'll lie to you, trust nothing. And you at least have your sense of humor, remember, going, the only reason I'm smiling now is because earlier I had turned the car around 5 minutes into the trip coming out of Amsterdam and said, I can't open the windows here. It's a new thing. It's in Mercedes or whatever, travel car, it's a town car or whatever. But just like one day Beats stereo showed up without a treble and bass knob. It was a big day. We learned to live without it. And you can't open the windows, okay? Well, if that's 15, 20 minutes in the back, that's okay, Jack. But I like to kind of see and hear and, breathe whatever's different there. It smells different by the ocean than it does going through the cornfields. And I like to look out the window. Most of our friends who are chauffeurs and bus driving and even aviation or whatever, most of their constituents spend most of their time not looking out a window or even cognizant that there is a window to look out of. Most of our friends spend their time doing this. Oh, somebody has to tell them it's time to put their seatbelt on. Okay. I am totally present in the moment. And yes, I know how to do this fluently, which, by the way, I want to talk about this right here. Because every time you do this, when you come in and you're going through global entry at customs or whatever, 9,000 million people are touching that screen one time after the touch of the screen. You're going to sit in the plane. Every back of every seat has something where you're scrolling and swiping and whatever. Hold on, I got to pick my nose. Just kidding. I got to go to work for the rest of my life. For 6 hours, we drove through the Dutch countryside, and the colors are browns and greens and really, really interesting. It's not really bright and lively. Think Bahamian colors are light blues, pinks. Those are sand colors that dazzle off the same salt water that works off the coasts of Holland, but it's really sort of a darker, richer kind of a color. There's a lot of history to it. And then I think I saw the future. I saw the future. Because everything in Holland that is local tastes a little different, not so much better, but really different. The butter is a really rich, deep yellow. It has a little bit of a saltier taste, and probably the cows that helped it along are right up the street. You can travel the distance of the whole place in 2.5 hours. Really, and not at a fast pace. So I'll set the picture. Because there was so much traffic, a 2-hour trip took us 6 hours. That's not an exaggeration. I was the only one enjoying it in the back. I had the windows open. We were listening to my mixtape. We got the funk, all right, like this. Everybody else is just waiting to get there. I'm already there. When you're really kind of comfortable everywhere, then your somewhere is everybody else's nowhere. All right, now I promised you no metaphysics before happy hour, okay? But if two people from nowhere meet each other, that's a somewhere. And those somewheres account for a lot of country western lyrics. I'll set the scene. There are dairy cows, and they're all on a really, really dense green kind of turfed farm. It's not sparse, it's really rich, dense greens. You have low wooden fencing that's hand-hewn, put in by hand. You can tell when you use a mechanical post digger, things are way more symmetric and way more the tension on the wires. These are old, not brick, these are old stone kind of hewed. These probably goes back to 1500s, 1600s in these fields. The homes themselves are different stone work that is put together with cement and whatever that is created from those creeks and those rivers and that kind of earth. So it's all kind of one piece. And anything that is an anomaly to that is not natural. It's sort of like when somebody comes from the beaches of Brazil, all of their music has a wooden kind of acoustic normal sound. The sharpest thing you'll see here will be something that sounds like a bird. That kind of a sound. You said, Dave, that sounded a lot like Cheetah, Tarzan's best friend. Yeah. But you know that, if that's like a bird. That's the most piercing you'll think from the beaches of Brazil. It's an acoustic environment. Maybe you hear an airplane go by like this. If you grew up in New York City, that's a yeah. And you don't hear anything acoustic. It's all man-made. Everything you're breathing and eating is man-made, right? So it's techno, fucking fighting for your space. And that's just at McDonald's.